So I was given a whole whack of elderberries a few months ago from various relatives, and so I needed to figure out what to do with them. I'd recently gotten into making alcohol and decided that using elderberries for this purpose would make for an interesting experiment. So I gathered up my supplies. I got bread yeast, because it's cheap and easy to find, white sugar, some thawed elderberries, party balloons, and a 1-gallon jug of water. I poured out some of the water into a glass and dumped my packet of yeast into it. This is called hydrating the yeast, and it's basically a way to wake up your dry yeast and make sure that it's viable. Next, I used some lemon juice concentrate to reduce the pH of the water. The lower the pH number, the more acidic a substance is, and yeast likes to be at around 3.5 to 4.5 on the pH scale. After that, I dumped my elderberries in, which turned out to be a bigger job than I anticipated because I decided to use a plastic jug instead of a proper fermenter. I then dumped in my white sugar, followed by the yeast mixture in the glass. I gave the brew a really good shake and then slapped a balloon over the mouth of the jug. After a quick cleanup, I placed the brew into my fermentation station and watched as the balloon inflated from the off-gassing of the brew. Alright, so last night I was looking at this fermentation to kind of see where it was at, and I noticed that the balloon was getting a little flaccid. So I thought, well, I'll take that balloon off and put a new one on and see if it reinflates, and it did reinflate, but it did so very slowly overnight, and there's not a lot of pressure on it. So that tells me that the fermentation has slowed down considerably, and it might even have stalled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a quick stir, just to kind of suspend the yeast into the liquids and see if that will help get it going again. And if I don't see any major activity in the next 24 hours, I might have to repitch, but we'll see. Smells like alcohol. So as I'm doing this, I'm trying not to introduce too much oxygen because I don't want to oxygenate this because that will turn it into vinegar. Just trying to get it to resuspend again. Okay, so a bit of an update. As you can see, it's now more full, so I added a liter of water and half a cup of sugar, and didn't do anything else. I just replaced the balloon and poked a new hole in it, and now it seems to be going again. So I think my stalling issue has been fixed. A few weeks later, the fermentation looked like it was complete, so I figured it was time to rack the brew off of the berries and do some taste adjustments. So I used a length of tube to siphon the liquid from my plastic jug into this 1-gallon pitcher. I then gave it a quick taste and realized that it was pretty dry and bitter, so I decided to add some sugar. I gave it another taste and was happy with the results, so I racked the brew back into the freshly cleaned jug. I put a fresh balloon on the jug and then put it back into my fermentation area. I let the brew rest for a few weeks and then racked it into a new glass fermenter. By this time, the liquid had cleared considerably and it had this lovely deep red color. I also tasted it while doing this and noticed that the brew had a distinctly sour flavor to it. I wasn't a fan, but I thought maybe if I aged it in an oak barrel that would help with that. Foreshadowing, I never got the chance to do that. So I put the lid and airlock onto the glass fermenter and pasteurized the brew to stop it from fermenting any further. Now here's where I made a fatal mistake. I left too much airspace in the top of the fermenter, and the brew unfortunately turned into vinegar. Needless to say that after tasting it and realizing that it had gone bad, I unfortunately had to dump the brew down the sink, and that was the end of that. Or was it? I decided to try again. I'd learned a few lessons from my previous experience and decided that one of the mistakes I'd made was not adding enough fruit to my initial brew. So I used a lot more elderberries this time, and I put them in a cheesecloth, which I tied off and placed into my fermenting jar. I then added 500 grams of brown sugar into the jar. White sugar tends to add a bitter flavor that I'm not a fan of, so that was the second thing I changed this time around. I added water and yeast to the jar and then watched as the fermentation took off. Okay, so it is November 18th, and this was brewed November 9th, which means it's been 9 days. And as you can see, there's not a whole lot of activity. I'm pretty sure this is a stall. It stopped about 3 days ago, and I've kind of been keeping an eye on it. And I tried adding some yeast to see if that would kind of kickstart it again. I added some dead yeast to see if that would help to feed the live yeast, and it's not getting anywhere. So I'm pretty sure we got a stall. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull all the berries out because that might just be blocking off the gas from escaping, and that might be causing the stall. So I'm going to try that first, maybe wait a few days, see what happens. I'm also going to give it a quick tasting to see if it's still sugary, because if it's already gone through all of its sugar, that means it's done. Okay, so I've got my turkey baster, and I'm going to take a quick little sample and give that a taste and see what it tastes like. Okay, yeah, so it's still fairly sweet. It tells me it hasn't run through all of its sugars yet. It might just be done. But, there's not a whole lot of alcohol in there. Okay, so I have some brown sugar and water in a jug, and I'm going to gently pour this into my fermenter and see if that will kind of kickstart things off again. Okay, so I've got it up to about that level now, which is about where you want it. So I am going to refill my airlock and put it back together again and wait a few days and see what happens. Adding the water and brown sugar seemed to kickstart the fermentation again, and it looked like it was going to go fairly well, but after a few days it stopped again. I let it sit for a few weeks and then decided to stop the fermentation altogether. I racked the brew off into my pitcher and gave it a taste. Now, to my surprise, the yeast apparently had eaten through all the sugars because the wine tasted completely dry. I added a cup of sugar to offset the bitterness of the elderberries and then racked the wine back into the glass fermenter. Now, the flavor was fairly strong, so I added a bit of cold water. I then pasteurized the wine, and a few days later, finally did my taste test. Hey there, this is the tasting of elderberry brown sugar wine. I don't have a wine glass today, sorry guys, the other one's dirty. I just pasteurized this about 2 days ago, so this is going to be a very early, very young tasting. I'm probably going to age this for much larger. It hasn't even been bottled yet. But I wanted to give it an initial tasting because I already did my flavor adjustments. As you can probably see, it's not very clear. It's still pretty cloudy. So that will probably change over time. It just needs to settle out and stuff first. But on the nose, it smells really good. It smells like sweet elderberry. I have a feeling this is going to be more like a sweet Christmas wine. Oh yeah, you can taste the cinnamon in it. That's really good. After I pasteurized it, I added a couple sticks of cinnamon just to add a little bit of flavor to it. And wow, did that ever make a big difference? That tastes really, really good. It's very sweet. I'm kind of made this more of a Christmas wine because elderberry is a very tart fruit, or tart berry rather. It's kind of like a cranberry where it has a really strong tartness to it. So I wanted to balance that out with the sweetness. Now I'm hoping aging will help with the cloyingness of it because it is a little bit too sweet in my opinion. But yeah, there's not a whole lot of alcohol in there. It did finish out pretty quickly, and I did struggle with keeping it going. So I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna stop it there. Yeah, you can definitely still taste the bitterness of the elderberry, but it's very sweet. Yeah, I'm not even getting a buzz on this one. But man, oh man, that cinnamon. I think I'm gonna pull the cinnamon out today because that's enough cinnamon flavor in that I think I'm ready to bottle that. And yes, it needs to clear up more, but I'm thinking what I'll do is I'll bottle it and it will clear in the bottle. So yeah, I think I'm gonna finish this. This is pretty good. So yeah, that's elderberry wine. I failed at it once and tried again, and I still failed. But you know what? I like the way it tastes. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. I would call this a success, even though it didn't really make a whole lot of alcohol. It's fine. I'm going to bottle this, and save it for Christmas. My name is Cinnamon Roll. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe because that helps my channel grow. And I hope you have a wonderful day. See you next time.